moderator yields back. Mr. Jeffries.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for convening this incredibly important hearing. I thank the witnesses for your presence, and I want to direct my questions to Mrs. Goodwin. I thank you for your virtual presence here, as well as for your legal expertise. This seems to me to be a conflict between those of us who want to make sure that a woman has the freedom to make her own health care decisions, and those who want to criminalize health care, jam the women of this country with government-mandated pregnancies, even in the case of rape or incest. Now, this draft opinion by Justice Alito regarding Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization calls for the removal of a constitutional right for more than 100 million American women, I believe 167 million to be exact. Mrs. Goodwin, if Justice Alito's draft becomes the final majority opinion of the court, how many years of judicial precedent would the Supreme Court be overturning?
Well, if we're talking about Roe v. Wade specifically, it would be 49 years of Supreme Court jurisprudence. But I would even suggest that we look back to Skinner v. Oklahoma in 1942, where the United States Supreme Court made clear that reproductive freedom and autonomy was a human right in the United States. And so we actually missed the mark by just looking to Roe v. Wade. If we actually look to a case that involved a man who was being denied reproductive autonomy in 1942, the Supreme Court said that that was unconstitutional.
So this is an extraordinary step that the court may take, a runaway right-wing radical majority of the Supreme Court. To justify his opinion in the draft, Justice Alito quotes and refers to Sir Matthew Hale, I believe, approximately 98 times. Is that correct?
A number of times. I can't express that that's exactly the number of times that he does, but it is alarming nonetheless that he does, considering that Sir Matthew Hale was one who wrote about coverture, meaning that women had no independent identity apart from their husbands, and that also meant that women could be legally beaten by their husbands and legally raped by their husbands too.
Oh, trust me, Ms. Goodwin, we're going to get there. Now, Justice Alito describes Sir Matthew Hale as a great and eminent legal authority. Is that correct?
That is correct.
A great and eminent legal authority. Mr. Chair, I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record a piece in the Washington Post on Roe. Alito cites a judge who treated women as witches and property.
Without objection.
Now, Sir Hale, an English judge from the mid-1600s, actually sentenced 2 women to death who he deemed as witches. Is that correct?
That may very well be correct. I would say that he cites several other legal scholars as well who supported those ideas and views.
Now, this so-called legal scholar, Sir Hale, is the one who actually was the foundation for the most frequently cited defense of the infamous marital rape exception. Is that true?
That's correct.
And Sir Hale once wrote that the husband cannot be guilty of a rape committed by himself upon his lawful wife, for their mutual matrimonial consent and contract the wife hath given up herself in this kind unto her husband, which she cannot retract, end quote. So essentially,
that's right.
Justice Hale, or Sir Hale, viewed women as property that could be violently raped and abused without consequence. Is that true?
That is true.
And so most of the legal basis for Justice Alito's draft opinion and his doctrine stems from a misogynistic so-called scholar from the 17th century who died before a single word of the Constitution was written. Is that true?
That is correct, and who is not from the United States.
And the notion that these are individuals who want to speak about original intent and would discard 49 years of settled precedents here is outrageous, it's problematic, and that is what will undermine the confidence of the American people in our judiciary. We're going to continue to stand for the freedom of a woman to make her own health care decisions. Thank you for your testimony.
The gentleman
Thank you
yields
very
back.